makers, and welcome back to Spectiva Studios. It's really good to have you here. Now, a few weeks ago, we worked on a project where we used acrylic paint pens. And one of the things I promised you at that time is that in the future, we would explore acrylic paint pens and mixing your own colors a little more closely. Well, guess what? That day has come. And I want to share with you today how we're going to take these empty pens. So as you see, I have an empty canister here. I'll explain what this is. But it's a paint pen with nothing in it. A little bit of air and a couple of balls to help mix our paint up here. And what I want to do is I want to turn this into something that will allow me to create my own paint colors. Right, we're going to use some standard traditional acrylic paint to get us there. And I'm going to show you how we can pull all that stuff together. Now, to begin with, we're going to need some paint. And I've selected a color you're probably not going to find at the store if you go to find a paint pen, and that is this orange-yellow color. Now, the other reason I chose this is a very pasty paint, very heavy, heavy-bodied. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a ramekin here in front of me, and I'm going to get some paint into this ramekin. Let's see if this is going to behave for us. Like I said, this stuff is thick, thick, thick. There it goes. And again, we don't need to have huge amounts for what we're doing, so that's a sufficient amount. Now, I already recognize that this paint is way too thick for me to use, practically even a paint, it's so thick. It's very much a paste. So one of the things I need to do is I need to step it down. I need to get it to a point where it's going to, well, get more liquid. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to use this Liquitex Basics acrylic medium. This is a matte medium, which means that as I mix it in with this paint, it will create a matte format or a matte finish to this paint. And but again, you always want to shake up your matte medium or anything you're working with your paints if they've been sitting around for a while, because yeah, just get everything back together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. Now, you may not be able to see this very well, but the matte medium is kind of coming in almost like a thick cream. Okay, so it's not super wet itself. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some mixing. I'm going to grab a paintbrush here, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to work on getting that orange mixed in. Now initially it looks like, wow, it's really tinted out. But one of the things to understand about this matte medium is that it's actually a pigment-free acrylic paint. So while it looks like it may be doing something, the more I mix it here, we're going to see that the orange color, as I get these lumps out, is going to come through more and more and more. And again, as I keep stirring it, it's going to get more and more orange. Hopefully you're able to see the results on the camera as well. I'm just going to try to get my lumps out of here as well. And if I have anything that's causing me problems, I'll just use piece of paper towel. It's always good to have some handy, and I'll just take out I don't need that lump. It's very possible that something that was just dried in there, because paints do that sometimes and they sit around for too long. Okay, but the overall goal now is just to get in here and kind of blend this, and to really just try to water it down, but also to get all the medium mixed in with the acrylic paint. Now I can also come in here if I want to bring that and need more color. I can add a little bit more. But the challenge I'm going to run into, if I'm being honest, is that this is still too thick. It's very globby. And so if I put this in my paint pen, it's not going to do what I need it to do. So I'm going to use some water. And that's right. Now, most of the time I would say to you, don't use water as a way of thinning your acrylic paint, because it breaks down the composition of the paint. It doesn't make it stick to canvases in the same way. Well, the simple reality is we're not going to A, add too much water, but B, we're not also using this as a canvas tool per se, and because it's a paint pen, it's kind of a different beast. I'm going to pour in, maybe that was about 1/4 of a teaspoon, maybe about half, but I want to be able to come in here and again add a little bit of water to this gradually over time. Now my goal is to get this paint to a very liquid state. I don't want viscosity. I don't want anything that's cloddy or viscous like syrup or honey or anything like that. What I'm looking for is something that is well blended but kind of wet. Why? Well, because it has to go into this pen, and it has to be able to come down through the pen itself. Now, again, the mechanics of this pen are relatively straightforward. Let me just take this top off here so I can show you. So we have a mechanism here at the top, and there's a spring down here. And when you push on the nib, in this case, it bounces the spring and it opens up a little aperture down here, and that lets our paint liquid in. And the paint liquid then gets drawn down and it comes out through, in essence, a wick. So this is a porous tip here, and the paint will flow down through that and will allow us to work with it. And inside the canister here, we have a couple of balls. I really like this design. And this is when your paint pens have been sitting around for a while, you can shake them up, almost like a spray paint can, and just mix everything up, make sure it's ready to go. Now, how are we going to get the paint into this canister? Well, we're not going to cheat. I'm going to use a syringe. I like using these plastic syringes for drying up paint. I've used this previously, and I'm going to reach in here and I'm going to just grab up a quantity. It doesn't have to be a huge quantity, by the way. That's probably sufficient. And I'm going to put it here into my pen. There we go. That almost fills the whole thing up right there. That's what we're trying to do. And just clean the top off here. Get anything shouldn't be there out of the way. And then I'm going to put the top back on my pen here. And we are ready to go. Now, I'm working with this piece of black paper I have here in front of me as a proof of concept. Also, I want to show you an extra possible step you might find useful in working with your paints. What I need to do now is I need to get the paint down to the tip of the pen. Now, this can take a few minutes. As I press down my tip, it opens that aperture where that spring-loaded thing is that I showed you. And it allows the paint to come into the barrel, which is what we're trying to do. And the first thing it's going to do is it's kind of get absorbed by a sponge that's in that area. And like I said, it can take a few minutes. So it's the kind of thing where I'm going to poke and press down, hold it in some cases, but just keep doing kind of gently pressing. You don't want to jam this thing. But what you start to see in a few moments, if everything goes according to plan, is you can start to see the ink coming down. I can start to see here. You may not be able to see it yet, but there's a little bit of that orange color starting to creep down the wick into the tip of our pen. Okay, now it's taken actually quite literally 2 to 3 minutes to get the ink I should say the paint all the way down the pen, but it has finally arrived at the nib. Now, if I come in here and I start working with it, this is what I wanted to share with you. I work on a piece of black paper and I'm making an orange square. What do you think? Pretty nice, huh? You're like, what? What are you actually doing? I can't see anything. Well, that's the point exactly. If we're working with a white piece of paper, for example, it's going to be a little bit easier to see what's going on in here. And again, it may take a few minutes for the bulk of the paint to get down where this is really the liquid you want to work with and not just kind of the first part. But the issue at hand is that my paint pen, while it looks like it will do a good job and it works well on my white paper, just again keep kind of things flowing down, is not doing what it's to do on the black paper. So how can I remedy that? Well, one of the things that we might need to do with any of our colors, especially when we're going onto a black surface, is think about the opacity of that paint. So for example, I'm going to go back in here into my pit of orange yellow here, and think about how can I make this more opaque? Well, the real secret here is we want to take a paint that is naturally opaque, and that is going to be a titanium dioxide white paint like this one from Apple Barrel. And I'm going to come in here. Let me grab another paintbrush because I don't want to overdo it. But I'm going to reach in with my paintbrush. I'm going to grab a glob. And let's get that into our current orange paint mixture here. Well, another glob. Here, let's get... Now it's going to tint it, by the way. I will share with you that it will tint this orange up a little bit. Depends how much white you end up putting in here. But it's also going to introduce the concept of opacity into this mix. I think that's just a little bit more. Yeah, that's probably plenty. Okay. So once again, let me grab my my trusty mixing paintbrush here. I'm going to stir all this together. And again, I'm starting to see that my paint is tinting out. And I can also go back in if I say, okay, that's a little lighter than I expected. I can add a little bit more of my orange paint if I wanted to. This might be the thing we're desiring to do. And it's still coming across a little bit thick now that we've added all that additional paint. So once again, just a tiny, tiny splash of water just to get that viscosity knocked down just a little bit. We want this to be more liquid and less thick. All right, so there we are there. All right, what I'm going to do now, let's just mix sufficiently, is I'm going to grab my syringe again. Let me grab my other pen and prep it. Ready to go. Grab my syringe and let's draw the new paint up into it. Again, we don't need to fill anything. And then it's just a matter of injecting it into our paint. I'm going to leave just a little bit of head space there just so I can see what's going on. And whoops, let's get the put the top back on. That'd be a smart thing to do. There we go. So we actually have the pen part. And there we are. Now, once again, I'm going to give this a little bit of a shake. Just because I should. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now, again, this is a brand new pen, so I need to wait for the paint to come down the pike, as it were, you can't even see where I was painting with the orange color from the other paint pen before at all. It's just, it's kind of invisible. It's blended in with the black perfectly, which is, well, if that's your objective, then you nailed it. But for most of us, that's not going to be what we're trying to accomplish at all. We really want something that's going to stand out and make a big difference. So let me give this this new pen a few moments to get down to where it needs to be, where the paint is actually coming out of it, and then we'll come back and see a comparison, see what happens with this new mixture. Okay, so it didn't take very long actually in this case, but now when I'm working on my black piece of paper with the new paint combination, right, that little bit of white makes a huge difference for me to be able to come in and actually have something that you can see. And you can even see that on camera. How about that? So unlike our largely invisible, which didn't work out well for us. And again, the longer I hold this down, the more saturated the tip will be, and it'll bring more paint in and just make it a little bit easier to come in and do painting. It's very hard when the paint first gets started to get the full flow of paint that you might want. But in this case, it looks much better against the black. Now, how do we compare this against the white? And again, if I come in here and say, let me draw a new square underneath the square I put in previously, it's a little bit more of a creamsicle color. Right, it's a little bit, but you can see the tint, but it's not a huge difference. But it allows us to come in here and do that. Okay. Now there are different types of tips. I'm dealing with a standard blunt tip here. There are chisel tips that you can get here, and again, I'll put all the information you need in the description below, and you can check that out. If you want to see the video in which we actually use the paint pens, I'll throw that at the end of this video here, so you can go link to that if that's what you want to be able to do. But once again, yeah, there are different solutions. Some are much more expensive. I'll show you a couple of different things in the listing materials. But the bottom line is you want to be able to create your own paint to be able to use in your own projects. And you're on a budget, because who isn't? What a great way to be able to do this, to come in and have something where you can create your own paint pens. And now you have a lot greater control over them. And again, the more you use this, the more that paint will flow. And you can always go back in there. If you say, you know what, it's not as thin as I want it to be, take the paint out, remix it, put it back in, take it from there. You'll be a happy person. Anyway, that's all I wanted to share with you this week. It's a quick and easy one, but hopefully it's something you're going to find valuable going forward. And if you like what you saw here today, guess what? We drop a tip, trick, or we do some art every single week exploring abstract art production and the materials that go into its creation. And would love to be able to have you be part of our growing family. So feel free to hit that subscribe button down below. And hit that little icon if you can, because it allows YouTube to tell the world that we're doing this. And we love being able to show this stuff. Anyway, that's what I have for you. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Spider. I'll see you all next time.